"I just couldn't believe it," said one of his closest friends. "The guy I knew was super healthy, super athletic, super conditioned. There's no way he could just die like that." Bruce Lee was the undisputed king of martial arts, revered by millions around the world. He was a phenomenal athlete, explosively fast, and the Einstein of Kung Fu. His unique talent and relentless drive propelled him to Hollywood stardom. Nothing could stand in his way. But on the night of July 20th, 1973, just hours after complaining of a headache and feeling tired, Bruce Lee collapsed into a deep coma at his girlfriend Betty Ting Pei's apartment. He was only 32 years old. The official autopsy report revealed a shocking detail. His brain weighed 1,575 grams, 175 grams heavier than a normal adult brain, indicating severe cerebral edema or brain swelling. The coroner's verdict? A hypersensitivity reaction to a single painkiller tablet called Equagesic. But was that really the truth? Today we're opening the actual autopsy files, inquest transcripts, witness statements, and confidential medical records that have rarely been fully examined. We'll reconstruct the final hours of this legend's life, step by step, to uncover the real tragedy that took Bruce Lee from us. Chapter 1. From a frail boy to a superhuman. But to truly understand how a man so seemingly invincible could fall so suddenly, we have to go back to the very beginning, to the unlikely origins of the legend. Because long before Bruce Lee became the king of martial arts, he was just a fragile, sickly boy fighting against his own body and against the world. Imagine a small, sickle child limping through the crowded, chaotic streets of 1940s Hong Kong. One leg slightly shorter than the other, terrible eyesight hidden behind thick glasses, skin covered in painful acne, and a frail frame that made him an easy target for bullies. This was Bruce Lee, or more accurately, the boy who would one day transform himself into Bruce Lee. Born Lee Junfan on November 27, 1940, in San Francisco's Chinatown, while his parents were touring with a Chinese opera troupe, young Bruce was taken back to Hong Kong as an infant. Post-war Hong Kong was harsh, and for him, life was even tougher. He suffered from chronic poor health, bad skin, and weak vision. He was actually one of the first people in Hong Kong to wear contact lenses for film work later in life. From a very young age, his family gave him the nickname Never Sit Still because the boy was a constant whirlwind of restless energy. He simply couldn't stop moving, vibrating with an inner intensity that seemed far too big for his small body. Yet there were deeper, more private struggles that very few people knew about. Bruce was born with cryptorchidism, an undescended testicle. This condition not only affected his physical development, but also led to him being rejected by the U.S. Army draft in 1963. For a young man already sensitive about his small stature and mixed Chinese-American heritage, that rejection struck a deep blow to his sense of masculinity. It became a hidden fire that drove him relentlessly to prove his manhood, to himself and to the entire world. At just 13 years old, Bruce gets brutally beaten in a street fight. Humiliated and furious, he refuses to remain a victim. He seeks out Ip Man and begins training in Wing Chun. You can almost see him there, awkward, determined, practicing forms for hours in the humid heat, his shorter leg making balance difficult, sweat mixing with tears of frustration, but his will growing stronger with every repetition. By his late teens, he had already appeared in over 20 Hong Kong films as a child actor. Then came Hollywood. In 1966, he exploded onto American television as Kato in The Green Hornet, showcasing blinding speed and charisma that captivated audiences. But when the starring role in the series Kung Fu was given to David Carradine instead of him, the racial rejection cut him to the core. Devastated, he returned to Hong Kong in 1971, more determined than ever to carve his own path. Then came the injury that nearly destroyed everything he had built. It's 1970. Bruce is in his garage gym, pushing his body to the absolute limit. He's performing a heavy barbell good morning exercise, bending forward with a loaded bar across his shoulders. Suddenly, a sharp, lightning-like pain rips through his lower back. He collapses in agony. Doctors in Los Angeles delivered the crushing verdict: a severe slip disc damaging the fourth sacral nerve. "You will never practice Kung Fu again," they told him. "You might not even walk normally." Most men would have given up. Bruce Lee did not. He turned to powerful cortisone injections and an obsessive rehabilitation program. Against all medical predictions, he fought his way back within 6 months. But that victory came with a hidden cost, one that would haunt him for the rest of his short life. This is the story of an unbreakable will forging a superhuman from a broken body. The same relentless drive that made him a legend would eventually push him beyond the edge of what any human body could endure. Chapter 2. Warning Signs. The storm was already gathering. But even as Bruce Lee appeared unstoppable on screen, storm clouds were quietly forming in the final year of his life. The same superhuman will that had forged him from a frail boy into a global icon was now quietly destroying him from within. The warning signs were there, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore, if only someone had connected the dots. By late 1972, those closest to Bruce noticed a dramatic change. The man who once carried 135 pounds of ripped muscle had wasted away to just 125 pounds, 56.7 kilograms, with his body fat percentage dropping to an astonishing and dangerous 1%. He looked emaciated, almost skeletal beneath his clothes. Friends whispered that he was skin and bones. To maintain his ultra-lean look for the cameras, Bruce had pushed his body into a state of near starvation while training at an inhuman intensity. He drank high-protein shakes mixed with raw cow's blood, believing it would restore his vitality. Instead, it added to the dangerous cocktail brewing inside him. Then came one of the most overlooked decisions in his life, a seemingly vain but fateful choice. In November 1972, Bruce underwent minor surgery to have the sweat glands removed from both armpits. Why? Because he hated the way sweat stains appeared under his arms during fight scenes on film. He wanted to look flawless on camera. The procedure was successful in its immediate goal, but it robbed his body of a critical natural cooling mechanism. In the humid heat of Hong Kong, this would prove catastrophic. Lesser-known detail: Bruce had always been a heavy sweater during training. After the surgery, he began experiencing episodes of overheating, even during light activity. His body could no longer regulate temperature effectively, yet he continued pushing himself harder than ever. Other changes were equally alarming. His once tan skin took on a strange, ruddy, flushed appearance, a side effect many now link to prolonged cortisone use. He suffered from frequent, severe headaches. His memory began failing him in embarrassing ways. Co-stars on the set of Enter the Dragon recalled him pulling out a photo of his brand new Mercedes-Benz from his wallet and showing it to the same people over and over again, forgetting he had already done so just minutes earlier. He grew increasingly short-tempered and irritable, snapping at crew members for minor issues. Behind closed doors, paranoia was taking hold. Bruce started sleeping with a sword next to his bed and began carrying a gun with him everywhere. He confided in a few trusted friends that he feared the triads or jealous rivals were out to get him. Then came the clearest warning of all, a near-death event that should have changed everything. May 10th, 1973, Golden Harvest Studios, Hong Kong. It was an oppressively hot afternoon. Bruce was in a tiny, soundproof dubbing room recording dialogue for Enter the Dragon, the film he hoped would make him an international superstar. The engineers turned off the air conditioning to prevent any background noise from ruining the audio track. Within minutes, the small room turned into a sauna. No ventilation, temperatures soaring. Picture the scene. Bruce stands at the microphone, script in hand, delivering lines with his trademark intensity. Sweat begins pouring down his face. After about 30 minutes, he suddenly feels dizzy. He staggers, tries to steady himself, then collapses to the floor. His body starts convulsing. He is writhing, sweating profusely, barely conscious. Studio staff panic and rush him to nearby Baptist hospital. Doctors there diagnose severe cerebral edema, dangerous swelling of the brain. His brain was expanding rapidly inside the skull, threatening to kill him. They acted fast and administered mannitol, a powerful diuretic that draws fluid out of the brain. Bruce regained consciousness within an hour. He survived, but only just. During treatment, doctors discovered traces of cannabis in his system. Bruce had admitted to chewing some hashish earlier that day to calm his nerves. Some physicians initially blamed it, but the amount was tiny and medically insignificant. What they didn't fully understand at the time was how all the pieces fit together. Years of cortisone use weakening his adrenal system, extreme low body fat, the removed sweat glands preventing cooling, chronic dehydration mixed with excessive fluid intake from his protein shakes and special diets, and the intense heat in that dubbing room. Bruce flew to Los Angeles shortly after for further tests at UCLA Medical Center. Doctors there noted a nonspecific convulsive disorder, but ruled out full epilepsy. He was prescribed medication and told to rest. But true to form, Bruce ignored much of the advice. He returned to Hong Kong and threw himself back into work, filming fight scenes and promoting Enter the Dragon. These warning signs, the drastic weight loss, the surgery that crippled his body's cooling system, the flushed skin, memory lapses, paranoia, headaches, and especially that terrifying collapse on May 10th, were all screaming the same message. His body was breaking down. The relentless drive that had carried him from a bullied, sickly child to the king of martial arts was now accelerating his decline. Few people around him wanted to admit it. Bruce Lee was supposed to be invincible. The man who taught the world to be water seemed unable to recognize when the water was rising too high. These were not random incidents. They were the early tremors of the fatal storm that would strike just 10 weeks later on July 20th. The signs were there. The world simply refused to see them until it was too late. Chapter 3, The Fateful Timeline, July 20th, 1973. The warning signs had been flashing for months, but on July 20th, 1973, the storm finally broke. Bruce Lee entered that sweltering Thursday already exhausted, running on empty after months of relentless work. In the weeks leading up to that day, he had been complaining more frequently of fatigue and headaches, yet he refused to slow down. At 12:30 p.m., Bruce sat in his study at home in Kowloon Tong, surrounded by script pages, intensely revising dialogue for his next film, Game of Death. This was the last time his wife Linda saw him alive. She kissed him goodbye before leaving to meet a friend, completely unaware that she would never see her husband conscious again. By 3 p.m., his business partner and close friend Raymond Chow arrived at the house. The two men discussed future projects, including the possibility of casting George Lazenby. Bruce seemed distracted and unusually tired. He mentioned not feeling well, but quickly brushed it aside, as he always did. They agreed to continue working on the script that evening at the apartment of actress Betty Ting Pei. At 7 p.m., Bruce and Raymond arrived at Betty Ting Pei's apartment on Beacon Hill Road. The humid Hong Kong evening felt especially heavy. Betty, the woman with whom Bruce had been having a secret affair, welcomed them warmly. As they reviewed the script together, Bruce looked drained. He complained of feeling extremely tired and unwell. To cool himself down, he quickly drank 2 cans of soda. For a short moment, the cold liquid seemed to help, but soon afterward a severe headache struck him hard. Concerned, Betty offered him one of her prescription painkillers, a single tablet of Equagesic. Bruce swallowed it without hesitation, hoping it would ease the pain. A short while later, he lay down on the bed in the bedroom to rest. Around 8:15 p.m., Raymond left the apartment to meet George Lazenby at a nearby restaurant. Bruce remained resting in the bedroom. By 9 p.m., Betty went in to wake him for something to eat. She gently called his name and shook his shoulder. There was no response. At first, she thought he was simply in a very deep sleep after another exhausting day. She decided to let him rest a little longer. But at 9:30 p.m. when Betty tried again, fear began to set in. No matter how hard she tried, Bruce would not wake up. He remained completely unresponsive. Torn between panic and her fear of scandal, the famous married superstar found unconscious at his mistress's home. Betty hesitated. Instead of calling an ambulance immediately, she phoned Raymond Chow and asked him to come back right away. Raymond rushed back to the apartment. Together with Betty, they desperately tried to rouse Bruce, calling his name louder, shaking him more forcefully. Still nothing. His breathing was shallow, his face pale. Only then did they finally call Betty's personal physician, Dr. Chu. Around 10:15 p.m. when Dr. Chu arrived, he was shocked by what he saw. Bruce was in a deep coma, unrousable, with no perceptible pulse and failing respiration. The doctor immediately began emergency resuscitation efforts right there in the bedroom, performing CPR while they waited for the ambulance. At approximately 10:45 p.m., the ambulance finally arrived. Sirens cut through the humid night as paramedics rushed Bruce to Queen Elizabeth Hospital. On the way, they continued aggressive life-saving measures. When the hospital staff learned who the patient was, the entire emergency team mobilized. Despite their desperate efforts, including injecting adrenaline directly into his heart, it was too late. At 11:30 p.m., just before midnight, Bruce Lee was pronounced dead. The king of martial arts, the man who once seemed invincible, slipped away quietly in the bedroom of his lover. What had started as an ordinary working day had become one of the most tragic and controversial nights in entertainment history. The world would soon learn the shocking news, but the full story of those final, fateful hours would remain shrouded in mystery for decades. Chapter 4. Why they couldn't save him. Even after everything that had happened that fateful evening, there was still a narrow window, a golden hour, when Bruce Lee might have been saved. But that window closed forever because of hesitation, fear, and a body that had already been pushed far beyond its limits. By the time Betty Ting-pei realized something was terribly wrong, precious minutes were slipping away. Around 9 p.m., she first noticed Bruce wouldn't wake up. She tried gently, then more urgently. But instead of immediately calling an ambulance, fear gripped her. The scandal of the world's biggest martial arts star being found unconscious at his mistress's apartment terrified her. For over an hour, she wavered between panic and dread. She called Raymond Chow first, begging him to return to the apartment. That critical delay would prove fatal. When Raymond arrived shortly after 10 p.m., the two of them desperately tried to rouse Bruce. They shook him, shouted his name, slapped his face, anything. There was no response. His skin was pale and clammy. His breathing had become dangerously shallow. Only then did they finally call Betty's personal physician, Dr. Chu. Around 10:15 p.m., when Dr. Chu walked into the dimly lit bedroom, the scene that greeted him was heartbreaking. Bruce Lee, the man known for lightning-fast movement and unbreakable spirit, lay completely motionless. The doctor checked for vital signs and felt his blood run cold. There was no perceptible pulse. Breathing had almost stopped. His pupils were fixed and dilated, a terrifying sign of severe brain damage. Bruce was already in a profound coma. Dr. Chu immediately began CPR right there on the bed, pressing down on his chest with all his strength while shouting instructions to Betty and Raymond. Imagine the chaos in that small apartment. The sound of desperate compressions, panicked voices, the humid night air thick with fear. For 15 agonizing minutes, they fought to keep him alive while waiting for the ambulance. When paramedics finally burst through the door, around 10:45 p.m., they took over the resuscitation and rushed Bruce down the stairs on a stretcher. Sirens screamed through the streets of Hong Kong as the ambulance raced toward Queen Elizabeth Hospital. On the way, the paramedics continued aggressive CPR without pause. They tried to force oxygen into his lungs and kept his heart pumping artificially. But deep down, they knew the situation was dire. The man they were fighting to save had already been without proper circulation and oxygenation for far too long. When the ambulance pulled into the emergency entrance of Queen Elizabeth Hospital shortly before 11 p.m., the entire medical team was waiting. Word had spread instantly. This was Bruce Lee. No one wanted to be the doctor who lost a legend. The emergency room turned into a battlefield of controlled chaos. Doctors and nurses swarmed around him. They injected adrenaline directly into his heart in a last-ditch attempt to restart it. They performed advanced resuscitation, intubation, in every possible life-saving measure available in 1973. For 30 intense minutes, the room echoed with the sounds of medical urgency, monitors beeping, orders being shouted, hands working frantically. But nothing worked. At 11:30 p.m., just before midnight, the doctors finally stepped back. Bruce Lee was pronounced dead. Why couldn't they save him? The autopsy and later medical analyses paint a devastating picture. His brain had swelled dramatically, weighing 1,575 grams instead of the normal 1,400 grams. The pressure inside his skull had become so extreme that vital functions simply shut down. This cerebral edema wasn't caused by one painkiller, as the official verdict claimed. The real culprits ran much deeper. Years of heavy cortisone use for his back injury had destroyed his adrenal glands, leaving him vulnerable to an adrenal crisis, a sudden and catastrophic failure of the body's stress response system. On top of that, medical experts now believe he suffered from hyponatremia, dangerously low sodium levels in the blood. The combination of drinking excessive fluids, protein shakes, raw cow's blood mixtures, and those 2 cans of soda that night, combined with his impaired kidneys from long-term steroid abuse, caused his brain to literally swell with water. The surgery he had undergone in November 1972 to remove his underarm sweat glands had made everything worse. Without the ability to sweat properly, his body couldn't cool itself or regulate fluids effectively in Hong Kong's brutal humidity. The near-fatal collapse on May 10th had been a clear warning. The same deadly combination had nearly killed him once before. But perhaps the deepest tragedy lies in the man himself. Bruce Lee had spent his entire life refusing to accept any limitation. From a frail, bullied boy with physical defects, he had forged himself into a superhuman through sheer willpower. That same willpower, the refusal to rest, to slow down, to admit weakness, became the force that destroyed him. He ignored the headaches. He ignored the drastic weight loss. He ignored the warning signs. And in those final critical hours, the fear of scandal delayed the help he so desperately needed. Even though he was a legend, his body could no longer fight back. The king of martial arts died not in battle, not from poison or conspiracy, but from the quiet, invisible breakdown of a body pushed too far for too long. In the end, Bruce Lee's greatest strength, his unrelenting drive, became his fatal flaw. The world lost not just a superstar, but a man who had transformed himself so completely that he ultimately outran his own humanity. Chapter 5. The Autopsy Files. The Painful Truth and Legacy. As the news of Bruce Lee's death spread like wildfire across Hong Kong and the world, millions refused to accept the official explanation. How could the fittest man on the planet die from a single painkiller tablet? With access to the actual autopsy report, inquest transcripts, and modern medical analysis, we can finally separate fact from fiction. The official verdict stated that Bruce Lee died from a hypersensitivity reaction to Equagesic, the painkiller Betty gave him. But the evidence simply doesn't support it. A severe allergic reaction of that nature would typically cause massive swelling in the airways, difficulty breathing, and visible signs of anaphylaxis. None of these were found in the autopsy. Bruce had no previous history of such allergies. The theory falls apart under scrutiny. Doctors also considered cannabis as a contributing factor after finding small traces in his system, but the amount was negligible, far too small to cause death or even a serious reaction. Similarly, conspiracy theories about poisoning by the triads or jealous rivals were thoroughly investigated. Multiple laboratories tested his blood and tissues. No traces of poison were ever found. A ruptured brain aneurysm caused by years of head trauma in fight scenes was another popular theory. Yet the autopsy showed no evidence of subarachnoid hemorrhage or bleeding on the brain surface. The possibility of sudden, unexpected death in epilepsy was also ruled out. There were no witnessed seizures that night, and his earlier collapse had been diagnosed as something else. So what really killed Bruce Lee? After examining all the medical records, the most credible explanation is a deadly combination of adrenal crisis and hyponatremia. Severe low sodium levels in the blood. Years of cortisone injections for his back injury had slowly destroyed his adrenal glands, crippling the body's ability to handle stress and regulate fluids. On that final night, the 2 cans of soda, combined with his existing extreme fluid intake from protein shakes and special diets, overwhelmed his compromised system. Water flooded his brain tissue, causing catastrophic swelling. The removed sweat glands prevented his body from cooling down properly, while the long-term steroid damage made fluid balance impossible. The May 10th collapse had been an almost identical warning. The same mechanism nearly killed him 10 weeks earlier. But Bruce, true to his nature, pushed on. This is where the story becomes truly heartbreaking. Bruce Lee didn't die because someone murdered him or because of one unlucky pill. He died because the same incredible willpower that turned a frail, insecure boy into a global legend ultimately destroyed him. Every time doctors warned him, every time his body screamed for rest, he answered with more training, more work, more drive. He refused to be limited. He refused to be weak. In doing so, he crossed a line that no human body, no matter how strong, could survive. Who bears responsibility? That question haunts anyone who studies this case deeply. Was it Bruce himself for ignoring every warning sign? Was it those around him who saw the weight loss, the paranoia, the headaches, but stayed silent because the legend seemed invincible? Or was it the impossible pressure of fame that demanded he remain superhuman at all costs? Bruce Lee once said, "Be water, my friend." He taught the world to flow, adapt, and overcome. But on July 20th, 1973, the water rose too high. It flooded his body, overwhelmed his defenses, and took him away at the peak of his power. His death was not just the loss of a movie star or a martial artist. It was the loss of a man who had completely reinvented himself. From a bullied, sickly child with an undescended testicle and a shorter leg, to the most influential figure in martial arts history. He changed the way the world saw Asian men on screen. He inspired millions to train, to dream bigger, and to break through their own limitations. Yet his story also carries a painful lesson. Even the strongest will has limits. The human body is not invincible, no matter how hard we push it. Bruce Lee transformed himself so completely that he ultimately outran his own mortality and paid the ultimate price. Today, when we watch his films and see that explosive speed, that one-inch punch, that incredible charisma, we remember not only the legend, but the man behind it. A man who fought every obstacle life threw at him, only to be defeated by the fire that burned inside him. So what do you think really killed Bruce Lee? Was it the cortisone, the extreme lifestyle, the delay that night, or something we still don't fully understand? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the autopsy files and the real story behind his death valuable, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss future investigations into the hidden tragedies of legends. In the next video, we'll explore another icon whose death still sparks fierce debate to this day. Bruce Lee may be gone, but his spirit and his warning lives on.